The majority of this session is going to be about teamwork, working with your team and working to defeat other teams. Defeat. No survivors. Okay. Dimensions, that's the name of the game. So my name is Edward Joy. I work at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine as a research fellow in the nutrition group. The game was created through a new collaboration with some folks from the Utrecht Games Lab, so specialists in designing games, designing live multiplayer games, digital games, everything like that. So just quickly to give them their acknowledgement, Zoe Vermeer, Lucas Rutting, Yusuf Avort all collaborated to develop this game, and Sophia, who many of you will know as well. So, goals of the game. Today is going to be about projects and policies for sustainable food systems. The topic of the game can change, as you'll see, or as you'll see when you reflect back on today. It could be any challenge, but today is going to be about sustainable food systems. And there'll be 2 awards at the end, one for best project, which will be awarded by the judges, and one for most helpful team, which will be decided by you amongst each other. So we have 2 judges today. Namakulo, who's sitting there at the back, and Alan Dangle will come and join us as well. So that's when the judges will be involved. So food systems, very, very, very briefly. This is, I think, a quick, succinct definition of what a food system is. So this is going to be your remit for today. A food system, all the actors and activities involved in the production, processing, transport, and consumption of food. So this is a little depiction of what that might look like. All the activities along the bottom there, from agriculture up to consumption. All the actors, from farmers up to consumers. And some of the larger actors, for example, Kraft Heinz, who might be up towards the consumption end of things. JBS, a big beef producer in Brazil, who are in the beef production game, and packaging and processing game. So this is your remit. Any project or policy that works in this area to make this system more sustainable is what you can work on together as a team today. So just quickly on sustainability, the judges will be looking across the different dimensions, if you like, of sustainability. So society, economy, and environment. So projects that manage to work across these areas will probably get more points, or at least able to consider trade-offs or co-benefits. And here, this will come with your, as you split into teams, this will be printed out, so you can all sort of, a little crib sheet, you can refer back to this. So sustainable food systems, any project that looks at one or multiple of these dimensions is within the remit of the session today. You will all be splitting into teams, but the first step is the formation of the teams. So you will all receive a character sheet in a minute, and this character sheet you will fill in. Let me show you what it looks like. This character sheet you will fill in based on your own personal skills. Don't make up skills that you don't have. Okay? You're not a fictional character in this game. You're playing yourself. So you'll rate yourself across these knowledge categories and background skills. So have a look at those categories. Think where you might score highly. Think where you know a little bit, but not that much. And this is what I would do if I was filling it in. Give yourself a maximum of 10 points in knowledge categories and a maximum of 10 points in background skills. Once you've done that, you're going to go into the marketplace, which is going to be any space in this room. And you're going to meet the other characters, okay? You're going to go around and meet each other, and you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to show people your character sheet. You're going to explain what you're good at and what you're not so good at, where you might be looking to find complementary skills. And this is the team formation thing. So if you're a nutritionist, but you don't know anything about agriculture policies, you might want to go out and find someone who knows something about agriculture policies. So that's what we call the marketplace. You go and sell yourself, and you go and find someone who you want to work with, who's got complementary skills. So I think with the team numbers, with the numbers today, we're going to be probably 4 teams of 4 or 5. Okay. 4 teams of 4 or 5. So no more than that, please. And then in your teams, you're going to work to formulate your project. Okay. So here, this is the remit. The remit is food systems, trying to make the food system more sustainable. You can choose the context of your choice. It's up to you, play to your skills. So it could be a country context, it could be a district context, and you can be working on any aspect of the food system. At this point, you'll start to fill in your project sheet, which you'll see. And that looks a little bit like this. You'll have a title for your team and your project. You'll give a brief description on the project sheet, what your project's trying to do, the main issues it addresses. Explain a little bit how you're tailoring your project to the context, how your project's going to be resourced. And then some bullet points on the roles of the various group members and some potential weaknesses that you can identify up front about your project and how you might be able to mitigate these weaknesses. That will take us up to lunchtime, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen after lunch as well. So we're going to need you all to come back again and work in your teams for what we call the battle phase. So this is where you pitch off against other teams, and this is where the judges will also be sitting and watching this interaction. So you'll have 15 minutes where Team A will pitch off against Team B, explain their project, explains its strengths, and tell them why it's a good idea and why it's going to make this food system more sustainable. Pitch B is going to have a little time to discuss that amongst themselves and then come back with what we call critiques. Okay? Try and be constructive with your critiques. But identify areas where you think the project is potentially a bit weak or it could be strengthened. And the judges will be looking for where the teams are providing constructive criticism here. And then we switch roles. So Team B will then pitch their project against Team A. Okay? And that will be the first battle round. The first battle round in total will probably take about 30 minutes. Then we move on to the second battle phase, as you imagine. A will now pitch off against C, and B will pitch off against D. We'll have flip the roles again, and I think that will probably take us up to the end of the lunchtime session. We'll have lots of time at the end, about 30 minutes for the judges to feedback and provide their judgment, and for all of you also in teams to reflect on what worked in the game. So this game is, every time we play it, we adapt it very slightly, and people have taken it off and adapted it for other uses as well. So we really appreciate some feedback from you. What's it been like playing the game, what's worked and what hasn't. So we'll have that in this last stage, summing up and judgment. So these slides, as we go through the stages, will be up here so you can refer to them. I will be here, I'm facilitating this session. Sol there on the other side knows this game, has played this game before. A couple of you have played this game as well. So if anything's unclear, come and find us, talk. There's absolutely no problems in coming to ask what you're meant to be doing at any one point in time. What we do have to be very wary of is trying to stick to time, because this can slip very quickly. So we're going to be in this first section, which is filling in your character sheets, and I'm just going to pass these around. So is everyone clear on what they should be doing for their character sheet? Fill it in, highlight your strengths, maximum 10 points on the knowledge categories, and maximum 10 points on background skills. And the 6 minutes starts now. Keep hold of your character sheets. Go and meet other people and try and find someone with complementary skills to yours. Complementary skills.
But should you not be looking for somebody who possesses the skills I don't?
That's it. Complementary, yeah. Skills that you don't have. You're selling yourselves and you're trying to buy others. Yeah. I think we need maximum 4 people per group. Minutes to finalize your teams. If you're done, so we can move on to the next stage, which is working with your team to come up with a project or a policy. Yeah, okay, so we've got 4 tables and 4 teams. So everyone, you can take a table. but do try and fill in your project sheet before lunch as well. After lunch, we're going to be in the battle phase. Okay, this is where you're pitching your project against other teams. Is the project ambitious and likely to have a major impact? Does the project fit the context? Are the budget and resourcing well considered? And is the project feasible? Then what will happen is the opposing team will critique your project, up to 3 critique points, okay? And the judges will be making sure you stick to just 3 points. So here you're trying to poke holes in your opponent's project, but you can also helpfully suggest how they might improve their project, what they might take on board. Okay, and the judges here will also be looking out for how helpful your critique points are. Okay, so you're going to be getting points on the basis of that. And then you will also get points as a team for if you take on board that constructive criticism. So in your defense of your project, after the critique, you will come back and say, well, actually, we did think of that, and this is how we're going to address the problem that you raised. Okay, so that's taking on board the constructive criticism. So those are where you're getting points. We're going to stick tightly to time, just to keep it fair. So your pitch, 6 minutes. Then there'll be a little time for the other team to discuss amongst themselves and then reveal their critique points. That's 5 minutes in total. And then you have 4 minutes to defend your project. So I'm just getting my stopwatch out. Do you want to start?
Hello, namaste everyone. My question
They should first indicate what their project is all about.
It's the pitch the project. What's it about? How you're delivering, sell the project.
6 minutes.
6 minutes, I'll start you when you start. Or you could, do you want to have a stopwatch on this table?
Yeah.
So there's a stopwatch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So please now after measuring you must walk let you know why we do that.
So there is some merit to all the different projects, and we are particularly impressed about how much detail you were able to cook up in those projects given the time constraints that you had working with. The first project that, so essentially our final decision as judges is that we are going to work with our development partners to try and raise money for the various projects. And we will just work on trying to improve some of the weaknesses because we think there is merit in the different projects that we've got. So then the first comment I would like to make is to the initial group A. There are 2 group A's that worked, Patricia's group working on a multi-sectoral approach. Your work is very ambitious, but it certainly tries to look at the vast landscape of what the different sectors can contribute towards nutrition. What is particularly positive about the approach that you have taken is the fact that you will not outline detailed action plans and leaving that to interactions amongst the different stakeholders that will take responsibilities for particular actions within that multi-sectoral landscape for them to contribute towards those plans. So that is actually quite commendable. What we feel is what you could improve is actually articulate more clearly how that would happen, because the various judges commented upon an action plan. So the implication is there's some clarity there that could actually perhaps work out better. The other item that I think, which was not mentioned by the reviewers, is the fact that you didn't really articulate beyond dietary diversity, you didn't articulate if there were any specific nutrition indicators that you will also be dealing with. So as far as your monitoring and evaluation process, I think that's an area that you will need to look at. I want to move on to the group that is going to prepare an instant meal using locally available products. That project is really quite commendable in terms of wanting to use underused, utilized agricultural products and trying to create markets for that via that route. The area where we feel you could perhaps make some improvements is that you did not articulate very clearly what nutrient deficiencies you will particularly be working with. The other thing that was not so clear is how you are going to work with the cooperatives and the private sector mixed is not too clear. And then in terms of environmental sustainability, if you are going to be processing such a product, there's no doubt that you will produce some waste, and what you're going to do with that waste in terms of environmental implications also was not clearly indicated. So that would be definitely an area where some improvements would actually be made. And then, of course, in addition to how you're going to link the private and the cooperatives and how that structure is going to work well together, because they generally tend to have different types of behaviors. So it would be quite intricate to try and make that work. I wish then to move on to the group that is going to make the cardamom. I have learned a new word today. Never heard of it before, so I know a spice that I didn't know before. I will go and Google it after this. But I think the idea behind the processing and creating markets for a crop that is already grown, but that sounds like it's being shipped to India, and then, but the value addition on this end in Nepal is not happening the way in which it should. So that is extremely commendable. The area where I wasn't sure how things were going to work, the fact that you talk about using fallow land, and my understanding of fallow land might be different, but my understanding would be that you are using this land and you leave it fallow to let it rest before you use it again. And if that is the case, then I'm wondering if the land will actually have a rest. But if what you intend with that is that it's arid land that is not being used for other things, then it's commendable. But nonetheless, I see you shaking your hand, so the latter seems to be the case. If that is the case, then what we need to look at is sustainability in terms of making sure that that land is actually managed in such a way that it doesn't degrade beyond the aridness that it now has. So that's an aspect that you can actually look at. I'm trying to think holistically in terms of food systems, because it needs to also look at sustainability of the environment as well. Then the other thing that you also didn't address is the issue of impact on the environment, if there is any, because of the processing activities that you are going to get into. So that needs to come on board. And then finally, I think the link between the processing and the nutrition end was not so clear. People will make more money and what have you, how are they gonna get from the more money to the better nutrition? So that linkage within that project might need to be clarified further. And then the last one was, thank
the acronym spelt out on the pool. I can't remember what it stood for, but it was very good. Agriculture was in there. But it was kitchen gardens and using, supporting women, cooperative, collaborative efforts to support women to produce crops for home consumption, but also for sale, using sustainable agricultural practices, rainwater harvesting, locally organic manure and those sorts of things. So very nice. But what I wanted to draw upon was actually the learning process that the group went through. So first of all, you had all groups had 15 minutes to produce, as you know, 15 minutes to produce a concept, which is astonishing. And in fact, some of them were a lot better than grants that I've actually read, competitive grants that I've read. The second thing, though, is that you presented really well, really professionally. There was a really good set of presentations, and that was very nice. I think you also learned from working in a group that actually it takes a group with different sets of skills to come up with these sorts of ideas which cross disciplines. It's not just nutrition, because then it would be, why aren't they eating vitamin B12 tablets or something? Actually, it's about agriculture. It's thinking about the impact of agriculture on the environment and environment on agriculture. It's thinking about women. It's thinking about livelihoods. It's thinking about many different things, and that requires a group of people with a set of skills. I think the next thing was the critical feedback from another group of interested people. That really helped. And in fact, I heard your talk twice, and it got much better. The second time, it was much better than the first time. And you built in the feedback that you'd received already. So I think that shows that this sort of iterative process with groups of people from different disciplines can really lead to a strong project ideas. So you can't just sit in your room thinking up an idea. You have to talk to people, and critically you have to talk to people from different disciplines with different skills, different backgrounds, different understanding of the issues, so that you can build projects which are sustainable and are asking questions which are for the future, not for the past. So with that, I would like to congratulate you all, because I thought it was really excellent, and hand back to Edward, who invented this game, so we really should thank him.
I'm going to send a feedback form round, which is hopefully a quick way of capturing lots of your feedback. I will send it round to all of you once, and I will chase you once more after that as well. It really is valuable for us to get that feedback, so please, anything in there about if you enjoyed the game, what you didn't enjoy about it, anything you would like to change, thoughts that you might have on uses of the game, other applications, other adaptations. But really, I think on that point Alan was making about the usefulness of this process, working in multidisciplinary teams, pitching against multidisciplinary teams, the iterative process, and the idea of, you don't have to come up with all the challenges that your project might face. Others can do that for you, and then you can try and respond to that and build that into your grant application or your project or whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, any thoughts on that, please? I'll try and subhead what we'd like feedback on, but any thoughts on that would be really valuable for us. But last of all, again, a big thank you to the judges, but also thank you to all of you for your engagement today. Thank you.